21 miles. That is the width of the corridor at its narrowest point. 21 miles of water between Iran and Oman, between supply and demand, between the old world and whatever comes next. 40% of the world's seaborne oil passes through this corridor, every day, has for decades. The global economy was not designed around the Strait of Hormuz. The global economy was designed to assume it would always be open. On February 28, 2026, it closed, and the assumption broke. To understand what happened in February, you need to understand what the Strait of Hormuz is. Not politically, geographically. The Persian Gulf holds approximately half of the world's proven oil reserves. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE, Qatar, Iran. Every barrel extracted from those reserves must pass through one corridor to reach the open ocean. One corridor, 21 miles wide. The shipping lanes are separated by a 2-mile buffer zone. The inbound lanes run through Omani waters. The outbound lanes run closer to Iran. At full capacity, a supertanker passes through every 8 minutes. There is no alternative, no canal, no pipeline that can carry equivalent volume. If the strait closes, the oil does not arrive. In Season 5, we called these physical constraints meters, gates that control flow. The Strait of Hormuz is the oldest meter in the modern financial system. Whoever controls it controls the supply of energy to every industrial economy on Earth. For 80 years, the United States controlled it, not through ownership, through naval presence, through the Fifth Fleet stationed in Bahrain, through the implicit promise that the corridor would remain open and the implicit threat to anyone who tried to close it. February 28 broke the promise. Operation Epic Fury, February 28, 2026. A coordinated U.S.-Israeli airstrike campaign targeting Iranian nuclear and military infrastructure. The stated objective: prevent Iran from achieving nuclear weapons capability. The unstated consequence: the supreme leader of Iran was among those found unalive. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps responded within hours. They mined the Strait of Hormuz, not a partial closure. A complete blockade. Naval mines in the shipping lanes, fast attack boats patrolling the corridors, a declaration that any vessel attempting transit would face force. Day 1, 17 supertankers stopped. Day 2, global shipping companies rerouted. Day 7, insurance premiums for Gulf transit increased by 4,000%. Brent crude moved from $68 to $96 in 12 days. Not a trend, a step function. The market did not price in gradual escalation. The market priced in the sudden discovery that a choke point assumed permanent was not. For 39 days, the strait remained closed. 39 days in which the world learned what it had forgotten. The global economy runs on a 21-mile corridor, and the corridor can be shut. April 7th, 2 hours before a midnight deadline, a ceasefire was brokered by Pakistan. The terms were fragile. Iran would allow limited transit. The U.S. would suspend airstrikes. Both sides would negotiate. April 8th, the ceasefire held. April 9th, it held again. The market exhaled. Oil retreated slightly. Headlines declared the crisis over. The ceasefire is a word, the corridor is a place, and the place does not match the word. 21 hours of talks in Islamabad ended without agreement. Iran's foreign minister said they were inches away from a memorandum of understanding. Then Trump declared a U.S. naval blockade of the strait. Iran said any military vessel entering the corridor would receive a forceful response. May 4th, Project Freedom, a U.S. military escort operation to guide merchant vessels through the strait. Iran responded with 15 missiles and 4 drones. A direct hit on the Fujairah oil facility in the UAE. The U.S. sank 6 Iranian small boats. Both sides called it a warning shot. The ceasefire technically holds. This is what a ceasefire looks like when the meter is contested. The word exists. The reality does not. Here is what no one is reporting. While diplomats negotiate and navies posture, the global economy is doing something it has never done at this scale. It is rerouting. Shipping companies are not waiting for the ceasefire to become real. They are rerouting around Africa. The journey from the Persian Gulf to Rotterdam, which took 15 days through Hormuz and Suez, now takes 29. The cost per voyage has tripled, but the rerouting is not temporary. it is structural. China accelerated its Central Asian pipeline capacity within weeks of the closure. India signed a new agreement with Russia for Arctic crude delivery. Japan drew down its strategic petroleum reserves for the first time since 2011. The assumption was always that the strait would reopen and the old routes would resume. But the old routes depended on the old assumption. And the assumption that the corridor would always be open has been permanently falsified. You cannot unlearn that the corridor can close. You cannot unbuild the alternatives that are now under construction. You cannot return to a world where 21 miles of water are taken for granted. The meter is not broken. The meter is being replaced, and replaced meters do not regain their authority. Here is where the corridor connects to the kitchen table. Oil is not just fuel. Oil is the input cost of everything that moves, everything that is manufactured, everything that requires heat, transport, or chemical processing. When oil prices spike, the cost does not stay in the barrel. It migrates into food, into shipping, into electricity, into the price of the screen you are watching this on. Inflation in the United States is 3.3% and rising. No rate cuts are expected this year. The Federal Reserve, about to lose its transparency under Warsh, will be managing an inflation environment driven not by domestic demand, but by a 21-mile corridor on the other side of the world. The corridor connects to the Fed. The Fed connects to the market. The market connects to the breadth divergence we documented in Episode 1. Everything connects to everything because everything runs on energy, and energy runs through a corridor that is no longer guaranteed. In the language of this series, the Strait of Hormuz is the original meter, the physical gate that controlled flow for 80 years, not a policy, not a regulation, a place, 21 miles of water that the world built its supply chain on top of and never questioned. The fracture is not the mines in the water. The fracture is not the missiles or the escorts or the failed negotiations. The fracture is the discovery that the corridor was always fragile, that the assumption of openness was never guaranteed, that the meter ran on faith and the faith has been broken. The world is rerouting. The alternatives are being built. The old path is being bypassed while everyone pretends the old path is still the plan. 21 miles, that is the width of the fracture between the old economy and whatever comes next.